Welcome to 3D Builds. I'm Patrick McConville, and today we will be baking and building something extra special for a special cause. The Wainscott Heritage Project was formed in order to preserve the heritage and history of Wainscott, New York. One important part of that heritage is the Little House, which was built in 1920 to house Black migrant farm workers working the Strong family farm in Wainscott, New York. It was lived in and used until the 1960s, at which time it was abandoned and began to fall into disrepair. When it was about to be torn down, the Wainscott Heritage Project stepped in and was able to rescue the structure so that it could be restored and rebuilt. They're currently raising funds for that rebuilding and restoration effort now, and to that end, we have created an edible version of the Little House that you can build yourself. With our cookie cutter construction set and the accompanying texture rollers, you're able to build this delicious miniature version of the Little House, which we will be featuring at an upcoming fundraiser for the structure. When you're ready to begin building, grab your waterproof blueprints, your ingredients, and meet me back here in the kitchen, and we'll get started. When you're ready to begin making the dough for your walls, grab your waterproof blueprints and locate your recipe. Today, I'll be making a sugar cookie recipe, our sugar snap cookie, but you can make this house and any house using any of our recipes, all of which can be found on 3DBYLDZ.com in the recipes section. To make this simple sugar cookie recipe, you can begin by adding your softened butter and sugar to the bowl of a stand mixer, and then cream the sugar into the butter until everything is well combined. You can then add your vanilla and almond extracts, as well as a small amount of your egg whites. And the egg whites you'll want to introduce in small increments at a time and then mix well after each addition so that everything is well combined. Once all of your egg whites have been added, you can begin to add your dry mixture. And here I have whisked together my cake flour, baking soda, and salt. And add that in roughly half cup increments until it has all been added and is all well mixed. When your dough forms a ball in your bowl, you can remove it. It is probably ready, and the texture that you want to aim for is a clay-like texture that's moldable, not too sticky and not too dry. So if you find that your dough is too dry, you can add some more egg whites. If you find that it is too wet, you can add additional cake flour until you get the right consistency. And then you will want to take this dough. It is a very large recipe, so split it into 6 dough balls and wrap them in plastic wrap. And you can either use them right away or store them in the fridge up to 24 hours in advance. When you're ready to begin baking your pieces, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and grab your waterproof blueprints where you'll find your build plan. For this recipe, you'll be instructed on your blueprints as to how many of each piece you will need to bake. For many of the pieces, like the front and back roof, you'll need to make 2, so 2 of this piece. And then for others, like the side roofs, because they are different, you will need only 1 of each. So really the pieces that you'll need doubles of will be things like the front and back roof, the 2 side walls, the window trim, you will need 4 of those pieces. So just follow in your blueprints and you'll see how many of each piece that you'll need. Before you cut each piece, you will want to use one of your texture rollers. So for any of your walls or roof pieces, you will want to apply your cedar texture before cutting any of the pieces. And then for your chimney, we have a brick texture roller, and you'll want to apply that before cutting your chimney pieces. As part of the structure itself, we also have a cutout that goes above the side roof on either side, and that has a stamp as well so that you can incorporate those vents into the design. We also have an old-fashioned refrigerator stamp that you can use before cutting out your refrigerator pieces. And these are meant to be used as an accessory cookie that you can serve along with the design, or you can glue one inside if you wanted to include a little refrigerator inside. And the reason for the refrigerator is that that was the only item found inside the house when it was being dismantled. So this old-fashioned refrigerator is special, and this one is actually designed to look exactly like the one that they found in the structure. So go through, make sure that you're cutting out the appropriate number of each piece based on your blueprints, applying the textures before cutting the pieces. And then once you have all of your pieces cut out, you'll want to bake them for 10 minutes in a 375-degree oven and bake them until they just begin to turn golden brown so that they will be sturdy enough to hold up the house but not burned and scorched and inedible. Before I begin cutting my pieces, I'd also like to point out that I am using an extremely long rolling pin. It makes it nice and easy to roll out the dough and cut out larger pieces. And I am also using these 1/8 inch rolling pin bands so that I can make sure I get a nice even thickness throughout my dough. If you don't have the bands, that's fine, but do your best to try to achieve that thin 1/8 inch thickness throughout your pieces, and that will make for a nice clean structure that assembles really beautifully. I also have a few clay tools here in order to use and pry any window and door cuttings and things like that out as I go along, as well as some cake flour that I'll be using to dust my surfaces. So give everything a good dusting, and then working with half of one ball at each time, you can roll them out and begin cutting your pieces. Once all of your pieces are golden, you can remove them from the oven and allow them to cool for 10 minutes in the cookie sheets before removing them to cool completely on wire racks or on your countertop. And you'll want to give them at least 15 minutes to come up to room temperature, or ideally even longer. And you can even let them sit overnight and assemble the following day. While you wait for your pieces to cool, you can make your royal icing mortar. To begin, take your room temperature egg whites and add them to the bowl of your stand mixer, and then beat them on high for approximately 1 minute or until they're nice and foamy. Once those are nice and foamy, you can add your lemon juice, and you can add the beginning of your dry mixture, which is confectioner sugar whisked together with your cream of tartar, and then add that in roughly half-cup increments, mixing well after each addition. And then once you have it all added, you want to switch to high and then mix for approximately 3 to 5 minutes, monitoring constantly until you get a thickness that will hold a house together. So you want something ideally that will have stiff peaks, so when you invert your whisk, it will stand up, it will hold a house together, but not so thick that it won't be able to be pushed through a pastry bag. So when you have a consistency that's something like this, you can transfer it to a pastry bag, and then we will be using it immediately to pipe onto the pieces of our house and begin our construction. When you're ready to begin building the little house, grab everything that you'll need. Your completed pieces should look something like this, and you can see that I made about 6 of those little old-fashioned refrigerators that I'll use to decorate the scene and for snacking. And on the back of your waterproof blueprint, you will find your build plan. And this will guide you through each of the different labeled pieces, the order in which to assemble them, and how everything comes together. So it's a good complement to this video, but I will be walking you through step by step right now. You will also need something to build your house on. So that could be a cake stand, it could be a plate, it could be a board. Here I have a board that I was able to find at a TJ Maxx or Home Goods, and I drilled a hole through it and put a battery light pack underneath so that I could snake the lights up and through and light the house from within. I am going to take that and put that aside for the moment because we will begin by building our roof and setting it aside so that it has time to dry. Because it's a complicated roof, it has 6 pieces. I recommend inverting it when you assemble it. So to do that, you will need either a shoebox, a small Amazon box, or in my case, I'll be using a bowl that I've lined with some packing paper. And what you'll basically do is create a cradle where you can support the roof pieces as you're putting them together. So when you're ready, grab your royal icing, your bowl or box, and then the largest of your roof pieces. So that would be the front and back roofs here. And so I will take one, invert it like this, and then put it down inside of my bowl. And then I will take the other one, inverted like this, with the cedar shingle facing outward, and invert it almost like an open book inside of my bowl. And you want to try to line them up by hand and by eye as closely to straight as you can. And then grab your royal icing and put a generous seam of icing in between those 2 pieces and then spread it out with your finger. And what you'll want to do next is take one of your side roof pieces, the one with the notch or without, it doesn't really matter, and then add a line of icing to the outside edge on both sides, so the slanted sides of this roof piece. And then invert your piece with the finished side facing out, and then press it down along the slanted edge first of your front roof, pinch that seam together, and then carefully join it with the edge on your back roof. And just bend all of the angles so that everything fits together, and adjust where needed. And then once you have those pieces where you want them, you can go back in and fill in those seams with more icing and spread it out with your finger. And then we will repeat that process on this other side. And then finally, we will install our last two roof pieces, which are our side vents. And to install those, you will want to look for the long edge that will line up with the bottom of your triangle vent. And then add a line of icing along the edge where your vent will meet that roof piece. And then press your inverted triangle down and then against that line of icing. And you want to make sure that the stamp you applied with the grates for your vent are showing on the finished side. And once you have those in place, you can add a line of icing along the three edges of the triangle from the inside of the roof, and then spread them out with your finger and secure everything in place. And you can now set your roof aside to dry. I would give it at least an hour on its own to set up firmly. You can use a fan or a hairdryer as well if you want to speed up the process, but it's really critical that you not disturb the roof until it's dry. So if you feel any movement between the pieces, if they feel like they're coming together, stop and let it dry, otherwise everything will come apart. So I will set this aside and we will begin putting together our base structure and our chimney. While you wait for your roof to dry, you can put together your base structure. To assemble your base structure, gather these pieces, which are your front wall, your back wall, your 2 side walls, your window trim, you should have 4 of those, and then here I have one of the refrigerator cookies, which I'm going to put inside of the base structure, as well as a front door. So gather all of those pieces and then gather whatever platform you'll be building on. So here I have a wooden platform that I've drilled a hole through and snaked up a light kit. And I will be tracing where I want my back wall as well as my side wall in order to make sure that I have a nice squared corner. So I've gone ahead and traced those, and now we can begin and take our mortar. And we will begin by applying the window trim to each of the windows on the side walls first. So take a side wall, take a piece of window trim, and on the back, just add a few dabs of your mortar. And then take your window and press it down into place over your window opening. And you just want to make sure that when you apply the trim that it does not extend beyond the top of that side wall on the top edge, because you don't want that to interfere with your installation of your roof. So we have one side wall with window trim. And once you've applied your window trim, you can set those aside to dry. And we can begin with our back wall. So take your back wall and add a line of mortar to the bottom edge of that back wall. And then press that wall down into place where you drew the line on your surface. And if you have a support of some kind, you can lean your wall up against it while you grab one of your side walls. And you want to hold your side wall in place and see where it will fit against your back wall and the build surface. And then add a line of icing along that bottom edge that will meet the surface and that back edge that will meet the back wall. And then you can lean your back wall while you press this into place and then raise it back up so that the corner meets and you get a nice squared corner with clean edges. And you can make any adjustments that you like. You can get rid of your support. And once you have that where you like it, you can move on to your other side wall and repeat that same process. So kind of dry fit it, determine which edge will require icing, and put that on the bottom as well as that back edge. Then press that into place. Just make sure that you have nice squared corners. Next, you can take your front wall. We have one right here. And you can dry fit that. And you will want to make sure that the door, if you're looking at the house head on, that the door is on your right side. So we will want it positioned like this. So we will add a line of icing to the front edges on both sides, as well as to the bottom edge of that front wall, and then we'll press that down into place. And then you just want to make sure that all of your corners are as squared as possible and pinch everything together. And you should have a base structure that looks something like this. And it should be relatively stable. So if you'd like, I am going to go ahead and install one of those old refrigerator cookies inside of the structure, or in this case, cracker. Incidentally, I switched over and am building a paprika poppy cracker alongside of our other house. So I am going to install a refrigerator, so I'll go ahead and add some icing to the back of that. And then carefully press that into place. And now when you look through the door or the windows, you'll be able to see that old refrigerator, just like the real little house. And then next, we will install our door. So just apply a line of mortar along one long edge and one short edge, which is the bottom. And then you can press your door down into place against the bottom and against the corner. And now you have a completed base structure. So you can set this aside to dry, wait for your roof to dry completely, and then we will install the roof and have a completed structure. While you wait for your base structure and roof to dry, you can assemble your chimney. To assemble your chimney, grab your 4 chimney pieces and add a line of icing to either side of the inside face of one of your pieces. Then take one of your other pieces and hold it so that the finished edge faces outward, and press it down into one of those lines of icing so that you get a squared corner. And just make sure that the bottom is relatively lined up so that you get a squared chimney structure. And then take another piece and repeat that on the other side. And then take your final piece, add 2 lines of icing on that inside face. And then press it down onto the 2 edges of the other pieces. Line everything up so it's nice and square. And you have a completed chimney. So you can set your chimney aside to dry, and then we will install that along with the other pieces as we complete our build. Once you feel that you've given your roof sufficient time to dry, and I do mean sufficient because I waited 10 minutes and with a hairdryer thought I was ready to flip it over, and the entire roof came apart into 6 pieces. So I had to put it back together, and I hope that it is now dry. When you're ready to put the roof on your little house, you can grab your royal icing, and we will apply a layer of icing to the top edges on all 4 sides before inverting the roof and pressing it down into place. Once you've applied a line of icing to the top 4 edges of each wall, you can very carefully invert your roof and then press it down into place on top of your base structure. You will want to make sure that the side with the notch goes to the right of the front door if you're looking at the house. So in my case, the notch will be on this side. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm positioning the roof before I try to invert it. Again, no promises. I had to put a lot of extra royal icing on this in order to get it back together, and I hope that it's dry. So fingers crossed, we will see what happens. And then you just want to move the roof until it fits over your walls. And if you did get any icing anywhere, you can just use a clean, damp cloth and take that icing away. And if you want, you can take some icing and just fill in any gaps and make sure that you have good points of contact all the way around. Once your roof is securely and cleanly affixed to your house, you can move on and install your chimney. And by this point, the chimney should be ready to handle. And you are going to want to first put icing on all 4 bottom edges of the chimney, as well as along whichever edge you will press against the house. So you can decide whether you want to put the chimney this way or this way, because since it's a sandwich, it's not exactly perfectly square, but it will fit into the notch either way. So I'm going to go ahead and put it so that the wider configuration rests against the house itself. And so I will put icing on the bottom edges and then along that wider side. So I'll look to see if there's one that looks better than the other, and I will make the better side the front. So I will add a generous amount of royal icing, but only to the portions that are going to touch the house, of course. And then you can press that down into place, first against your platform and then against the house. And you can make sure that it's straight up and down. And if you wish, you can fill in any gaps between the chimney and the house itself. But in my case, I'm just going to leave it as it is. You will see here that I did include a cutout for a door. I chose not to install the door because I wanted to get that roof on and make sure that it would not fall apart again in my hand since I was too hasty the first time. But you can always, if you want a door, install the door. I like to install it at an angle before I apply the roof. And you would just want to put icing on the edges that will touch the wall and touch the floor, and then press that down really well. You can also install one of the old-fashioned refrigerators. Again, I mentioned that the only item I was told that was found inside the house before it was dismantled was a really ancient refrigerator. And so this cookie represents that, and you can stick one of those against one of the walls if you want, so that when you look in the window, you can see the refrigerator. I'm going to use them as display cookies around the edges of the house itself here when I serve it. But now that we have applied the chimney, the house is complete. So I'm going to go ahead, I will clean up here, we will come back, we will light the structure, and we will be completed with our little house build. Now that we've completed our build of the little house, we can take a final step and light it up from within. And if you do some research and find a photo of the little house, which you can find on wainscottheritage.org, I hope that you'll agree that it looks a lot like our mini edible replica here. And if you make one, I hope you have a lot of fun. I particularly enjoy how it has different textures, whether you're using stamps or texture rollers to apply them. Really brings it to life, and the mini refrigerators I think are really charming, and they go along with the history of the house. Speaking of history, I am so proud to present this tribute both to the people who lived in the little house and called it home, as well as to those working so hard to preserve it. If you do have a chance, please check out wainscottheritage.org. And if you are interested in one of our cookie cutter construction sets, specifically the Little House, you can contact Wainscott Heritage Project to get your hands on one of those. Otherwise, all of our kits can be found on 3DBYLDZ.com, and that is 3DBYLDZ.com. Thank you so much, and if you do make the Little House, I can't wait to see what you build. To learn more about the Little House and efforts to save it, please visit wainscottheritage.org. You'll learn more about the Little House, its place in the East End's African-American migrant farmer history, as well as ways you can help to preserve this amazing piece of history. Thank you, I'm Patrick, and I hope you enjoyed today's build.